What's good, you guys? Back with another trade review. So this review will be for August. Um, so I'm gonna just keep this raw. The past couple months that I did this, I kind of condensed it down, and there was not really enough information to talk about. So this one, I'm just gonna keep going, and it could be maybe past 10, 20 minutes. But I just want to make sure I have the information here, just so I can go back if I need to review it, and if anyone else just wants to look at it and compare it to their own progress. Um, so August is another one for the books in terms of self improvement. There's definitely some improvement going on. So before I really say like all the good things, I will start off with the bad things. So when you look at August, as you can see here, there is the first trading day in August, $783 red day, the biggest red day I've had in a while. And it definitely sucked. So in July, my biggest red day was 300. And nowadays, like, I'm aiming, like, I'm not trying to have those four-figure red days no more. I'm not even trying to have $500 red days no more. So to start off with, the $780 red day was horrible. But here's why it happened. So if you look at the trades here, as you can see here, there's the WKHS, so workhorse. It was in the EV sector, so that was blowing up. So what happened is a mistake that I made months ago came back to bite me in the ass. So workhorse, I had actually started shorting June 24th. As you can see, all the way down here is when I started to short. And my position size, so I started with 200 shares, covered 100. This was in June when it started to go up. I was kind of shorting the pops. Then I kept adding to my short, and it started going parabolic. It went from sevens to nines. Luckily, the next day in the afternoon, it had a red day, big red day. So I covered a lot of my position, and then I think I still had 75 shares left on the table. And I'm like, I had a order set for those to be lower because I was expecting it to just keep coming back down after the first red day, because realistically it came all the way from like $3-4, so I was expecting more downside. But nope. That after that one red day, it just keeps going parabolic again, like freaking supernova. So it went all the way from where I had it, which was, I think I had it in the high sevens, all the way up to 20s, and I was still holding here. What led me to cover on this day rather than any of these days when it was going down is that on these days, even though it was going down, I was kind of greedy. Like, I didn't want to take the loss, so I just kept waiting, more downside, more downside. Let's get it back into the below 10. But then when this thing started shooting back up again, also just based on the money I had available in my account and what was going on that day, because that day was also a bad day in terms of other trades I was taking, I had to just bite the bullet and cover just so I could just so I could release the capital that was tied up in that position, because 75 shares 75 shares at a price of, let's say, 775. I had about 500 tied up in that position. But it was eating away at my margin, because since the price had gone up all the way to 20s, that 75 shares was now a value of 1425. So I couldn't keep holding that. I couldn't keep having my margin, my available margin being so low, and then so I had to take it off. I had to just bite the bullet and then just get that off my conscience. So on the first trading day in August, I covered it when it started to pop to 19s, because I looked at the chart. I said, "Wow, look at this! It's setting its base now. It looks like it's setting up. What if it breaks out again? I just can't tolerate that breaking out again." And then what ended up happening is it didn't actually. It actually returned right back. You can see on the chart here that That was only momentary. It came up, and then the next day it just got flushed right back down, and then it started finding it came back to that support area in the 14s, but I wasn't really willing to risk it. I knew I was already in the gutter on this one, so like I just couldn't tolerate that what if of it if it breaks that 22 area again. So I cut that. And usually what happens when I cut positions like this and incur these big losses, it fucks with my mind so much. It destroys my conscience, and it sets up a stream of terrible trades. But I did not let that happen this time. I did not let it happen. So again, going back to why I had cut it that day is that I was having a bunch of losses. So NIO, which is another EV sector play, electric vehicle play. NIO, I was trying to tackle at the high of day, and I was trying to short the high of day, even though it was a breakout chart. Then when I tried to go for the high of day breakout, so I was shorting the high of day break, and then I was forced to cover because it kept going. And then in the daily, you could see it was kind of coming back up, curling up that's off that support there. Then I went for the pre-high day breakout because right after I covered, I saw it kind of set up that base off the pullback and then start coming up. I sold some just in case. That's what I like to do. And then it just pulls right back down. And it just looking at here, it's like these types of pullbacks that are so short that only have like maybe less than 10-15 minutes, like they don't hold that well, especially when they barely have pulled back off the highs. So, and I kind of know this from experience, but it's just that my mind wasn't running optimally. So that came back down. But if you could see the overall trend is VWAP is still holding, and it's still overall holding its gains from the morning. But once this little mini support area cracked, my mind just flipped right away because I'm just kind of so desperate. I just go in, out until I can find something that's going to work. So I jumped in right away, short. Short on that crack. And I went in like damn near max share size. And then that actually rewarded me okay. So I was covering into the VWAP, but I was getting greedy. So I wanted to make back everything that I lost before on NIO. So I was expecting to crack VWAP and just come all the way back down. Even though I completely ignored the signs when it bounced off VWAP. So I just left my order, went to the gym. But when I would be checking how the chart was developing at the gym, and then I would be seeing this bounce, and I still just ignored it. Like I just wanted so bad to crack below VWAP. So eventually I had to cover the last bit of my shares, which was I still had 200 shares. I still had 40% of my position. Had to cover that, and I ended up netting a loss on that short. So my mind out starting off August on this note was it was terrible. So after all those losses I took on NIO, I looked at the big picture, and it was going strong. It was clear that it was going strong. So I again took pretty much max share size I could for my account, and I was planning to go overnight. And I'm like, because this thing's holding on all day, it's still going strong to the close in power hours. So I just went in max size. I'm like, this has to work this time. And this thankfully did work. So I ended up getting shares around 3 in the afternoon. Started selling off in after hours because I was already 30 cents up. And then the next day, what happened is in pre-market it had peaked right at, I'd say, 1450. So I'm expecting it to come back up, break 15s, and hopefully go for that breakout. But just based on the history of the stock, if you look at it, a lot of the gain days get shut down with red days, but I completely ignored that too because I'm very familiar with the morning panics for this stock. But with this time, like I really wanted to keep going, and I was already up from 1350 to 1450, almost $1. So I should have just taken more size off. I didn't. I wanted to kind of just go for a home run. So the morning, it starts. So I waited. It starts panicking. I didn't get shaken out. Instead, I added on the panic, and then I started selling into the bounce because of how severe the panic was, and just in case it did keep going down, which is good. Sold off. Sold off into the panic. But overall, that trade still ended up being a pretty solid winner of the month. One of my best wins at 196. Before I kind of continue that, so yeah, so in August, so yeah, I had the 783 red day, but I did not let it screw me up. I kept going, and plus, I never fought hard to make it back. I just kept kind of trading regularly. And as you can see, I wasn't trading big, huge size or ego. I had so many days under $50. And yet, at the end of this month, when you take in the amount, when I add up the amounts that I lost, when I add up all these amounts, which includes that big red day, I ended up netting 169. And this month, also, so 169, and then I had 64.89 in borrow fees. But here they have it. I think this is kind of inaccurate because these borrow fees are from July, end of July to August 19th. But yeah, so I'd say just over 100 after borrow fees. And the reason my borrow fees were higher was because, again, I had another trade that bit me in the ass as well. BLNK. Again, BLNK. Another EV play. And the electric vehicle plays, they were going crazy from July and continuation in August as well. So here's what was happening with that. So that is another one from... This one wasn't from like June, and this one, it was still a dumb play, but wasn't like absurd size. Well, it was 200 shares, but what had happened was on the last day of July, I had made a really nice first red day short. Then I saw BLNK, and BLNK was like on the chart. It had its first red day. It had looked overextended, so I saw it coming down. I saw it sitting at 10, and I saw the orders chipping away on the bid. So I'm like, let me short 200 shares, go for the crack of 10, and it's going to wash, and then I'll quickly cover. But it ended up finding support there, and then going on another leg up. So I had to withstand 200 shares all the way at the bottom of this day. I ended up shorting low, 200 shares, and it went all the way to 13. So I was down 600 at one point. So what I ended up doing was I was kind of scaling out really slowly, like literally covering in portions of 5 shares each time, just in case it kept going, to reduce my risk, and also just so mentally I didn't have to deal with such a big loss all at once. But eventually it did finally start coming down. It finally broke that $10 support area. And as you can see, eventually it did get just completely wrecked, and that was from a short seller report that came out that made like disparaging remarks. With apparently false accusations. Well, at least that's what they're saying. And those reports just completely wrecked it that day. Well, for like a 2-day period. But yeah, so I was holding this position, and it had a 61% borrow rate. So every day I ended up with like $4 of borrow fees on a daily basis, and for given my profitability and account size, it just was not worth it. It sucked, and then it's the cost you pay for making stupid mistakes. In all honesty, so that finally cracked towards the end. I wasn't being greedy. I'm just like, yo, let me just cover. Like originally, I wanted like 950s, even low nines, but I just saw it coming down. I just took 974 and then covered the rest, right? Because they had bottom in the 970s, and right when it started bouncing up again, I'm like, let me just get out of here before it just keeps bouncing, because this thing is just too strong. It has too much support. But it turns out that it was ready to just it turns out it was gonna keep going down. But that's the thing, when you take like bad shorts too early and you withstand the pain, you can only tolerate the pain for so long before you have to do something about it, and then your mind goes from like strategy to just survival and just doing whatever you can. But those were like kind of the biggest, like, dumbest trades I say I made, with work orders being the major one, that from like June when I was just going crazy doing stupid shit, and then BLNK was from July. Luckily that didn't end up being that bad. I say I ended up paying, like, from here, maybe most of the $64 was BLNK shorts. Let's say like 50, 60, and then the $14 loss. So that ended up being like a $70 loss, including the fees. So not too bad, but still very annoying, unnecessary. But anyways, so like I said, I still ended up netting after all the big loss on Workhorse, and then BLNK, and then this $300 loss day. I still ended up with over 100, which is my second best month, and that's from live trading for, I'd say I got from January to end of August. That's 8 months, and then last year I put in maybe a total worth of 4 months live trading. So about a year's worth of live trading, and this still ended up being my third best month when you count for losses. But now we have to look at it another way. Let's look at strictly at the performance based on month to month. So this is including trades that I was taking from previous months. If we just look at it from trades that I took in just in August, everything that I executed in August, then you could see that the amount that I made is way different. I ended up making $907. So when you take out those amounts and you just look strictly, okay, how is my executions from August 1st to August 31st? I made 907, which ends up being my best month, because July, all trades strictly made in July, ended up being 738. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like the month to month improvement is there. And then when you go and look at the actual gross profits, 1,800. So like commissions are eating me up. Like I'm getting destroyed by commissions. But you know what? It's like it's a cost I have to pay, given that I'm not really. Well, now I could start sizing up. Now I could. I think I could confidently start sizing up, but I had to pay these commissions because sometimes I'll take speculative plays and I have to size down. Also, I started to get into OTCs in August. Started really getting comfortable with those OTC breakouts, afternoon breakouts, and let's talk more about some mistakes I've been making with that. So, if you follow like kind of my previous monthly recap videos, you know that some of my biggest mistakes were just shorting and then just shorting and holding, and then shorts getting out of hand and then losing thousands of dollars. So I ease up on that. I might still have short positions. Like I still had a short position this month where it's like I got caught maybe like 100 shares, but now when I get caught with a short, it's not like right when it breaks out. It's like more like after it's already gotten extended. Now what I'm noticing is an issue is that since I started getting into OTCs, because the price is so small, and it's such a small and even with like 30,000 shares, it ends up only being like $500-600, sometimes less, couple hundred. My account is right now is over 13 grand. What happens is I'll bag hold if it doesn't really go in my favor, because I know that amount, that amount is not enough to pull away from my trading capital. Like it's not too much to pull away. And B, since I'm not shorting now, I don't have short interest, so I could just essentially hope and hold. And obviously, it's not good for like a professional trader to do this, and that's something I want to work on going into September. So I do have a couple bag holds from OTCs, but let's go into my worst day in August. So the $300 loss day. So I was just kind of hacking at things, and NIO again messed me up. NIO, like, what was happening is that the stock had gapped up. So what had happened is the stock gapped up. I was trying to go at it in the pre-market, trying to buy the dip, but it kept going, and I was just trading it too tight, so I had to kind of keep stopping out. I like kept trying to hack at it, and it just wasn't, the scalps wasn't working. So I was already down like maybe $8-9 going into the open. Then at the open, I tried to short. So knowing that NIO always panics after a big green day, I figured it would panic again. So I didn't short right away, but as soon as I saw a sign of weakness, which was this when it started to drop, I shorted thinking, okay, we're gonna get it slammed down. But it held and just started to rip. I covered that quick, cut my losses quick, which was good. Then then I just started to like kind of hack at it. Like I was trying to scalp it here and there, scalp shorts when the candles looked to be getting overextended, like here when it was coming off from the dip. I was pretty much, once these I saw all these green candles, I tried to start shorting, and then the thing was a lot of times like I took the position too early, so I couldn't afford to risk if it kept going all the way up here, so I'd have to cut it when I should have probably scaled in slowly and then waited for the top to identify that. Because I had the right idea where it does pull back, but I was just getting in too early and psyching myself out. So anyways, for NIO, I just kept screwing up. And then I actually was able to make some of that money back. Um, when I was actually, I kind of grounded myself, and I went long when it made sense. So right when it was setting up for the high of day breakout, I went for that and made some money back. And then on this clear wash, I made some money back on that. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is I had to go to work. I had to go for lunch with my family at work, and then I missed out on the actual proper breakout. I knew it was gonna pull back. Just knowing NIO, knowing like when it has a good day and it holds its gains well, if it, because after it tested here and it pulled back, I knew if it pulled back and held, we get another break, and it had a nice pullback and held above VWAP, and that if I was still there, that could have been a nice entry, and I could have made back more losses. Because at this point, I brought my losses down to 100 on the day. So I went to lunch, came back, and I saw I broke out again. And I'm like, oh fuck, man. Then I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get in again when it dips, because I missed a dip before. I'm like, all right, I'll get another washout long dip buy. So I started going for the dip buys. What ended up happening was, so here's where ideally I could have entered on this when this was holding here, and it started coming back up again, or any of these like dips. So what happened is I kind of got in too eager. It's coming down. I can't tolerate it coming down more. I cut the losses. Okay. The next time around, you can see that the volume gets bigger. I'm like, because now from one being down 100, I'm down. I'm back down to 127. No, 115. So now here, I get in again. This time double size, 400 shares. It's still going down. it's not basing it. So I get stopped out again because I had to cut. With this size, I have to cut my losses. And then I kind of kept going. Now that you can see the volume increased again, so now I'm taking like 600 shares this size, max account size, and this thing is just not giving me what I want. I'm getting faked out because the size is so big initially that anytime it pulls back a little, even once it cuts that low area, I had to stop out and cut my losses in case it just keeps getting slammed. Rather than scaling it as it curls and bottoms out and then at least capturing a bit of the bounce. So I'm just getting wrecked here. $57 loss there. So I just take loss after loss. 17, then 31, then 40, then 57, then $30. Again, this time I thought, okay, now it bottom, now it's coming back up. Now I'm a bit late on the bounce because it already starts and this one fails. I just took so much like losses, like paper cuts that ended up being bigger than they were supposed to be because of my share size. If I took this 200 shares at a time, I could have handled it, but because the shot size I was taking was so big, I was just kind of getting emotional, and I could feel it. Those emotions that I used to feel back in June and July, where I would just start getting warm inside, and I just keep going. Like, no, I can't keep losing money. I keep losing more money. I have to make this back. Now it's like I'm down more. I'm down more. So that just got exhausting. I'm like, all right, I just can't keep going. By the time all this was said and done, I missed the actual bottom where it bounced from like 20.1 to 20.5, and that was a nice 40 cents there. I actually did give it another chance, so I was down 280 at this point. I'm like, all right, 300 will be my max for a day. Let me go for one more trade. Again, I screwed up because, so I bought it here. It double bottomed. So I'm like, all right, double bottom, good signal. Nice healthy pullback. The thing is, I set my top loss too tight because since it was 20, I couldn't let it go lower than the low of day because then my loss be over 20, but I'd put me over 300. So I was playing my P&L, wasn't respecting the chart because when I sold, the thing just comes right back up and it sucked for me to see. But to be honest, I wouldn't have been able to capitalize on all the way because I was willing to hold it until it broke high day again. Like I would have probably started scaling out, but my ultimate goal was this. But yeah, this was a terrible day. It definitely sucked. But back, like I said before, a few months ago, something like this would have screwed me up. I would have been just making small gains after that. I would have just been making $5-10 days. I might even have another $300-400 day the day after. But this time, I had an $8 day after. But I ended August strong, 167 on the Friday. Then the 31st, 117. So I made back most of those losses. Well, even if you include the 7, almost everything I lost I made back in the 3 days that followed. And the 7, what happened with that $7 day was that I screwed up on the dip. So I've been really screwing up, and I found in August, even in July, I've been really screwing up on my dip buys where I'm just too early, and I guess I just size in too early. Then I get shooken out. And the thing is, my dip buys are still improving because before, like, beginning of the year, I say anywhere between January and April, even May, I would take a hard dip buy loss, and I wouldn't have the confidence to get back in, or I wouldn't look at the chart and be like, you know what, I could get in, I could find the bottom. I would just take the loss and eat that and just sit with it. But now I could, if I take a loss, even a big loss, I don't let it mentally destroy me. I get back in at the real bottom, and I could pretty much make most of it back. And that's exactly what I did. I caught the real bottom and followed that bitch right all the way up. So I recovered so nicely, and then I got the bounce short as well, just because I've been reading the stock so well, and the patterns, and so I rode it all the way up, caught the bounce right nicely here, and then drove that thing all the way down when it hit the higher low. So I'm really happy with how I recovered from that. Although now going forward, I want to just nail the dip buys where it's like, okay, I get faked out, that loss, and let me keep that loss small enough so it doesn't offset the main when I actually do find the bottom. So size up appropriately at the real bottom, and then size in smaller when I'm more speculative about what the bottom may be. So let's go to the trades. Let's go look at the most profitable trades for August. So SHMP. SHMP was a bit of a doozy. Natural Shrimp, they had news. So this stock was a clear OTC breakout. I believe it was someone in the chat had alerted this. I think Matt Monaco was talking about this in the chat. But yeah, someone had let me know in the chat. I took 10,000 shares. Like this is when I was starting getting like still trying to get comfortable OTCs, stocks and OTCs under $1. So what had happened is during the on the 11th when I had the original breakout day, it was going really nicely, so I was taking some off. But what happened is in the afternoon just got creamed. But the thing was, it was getting creamed in line with the market. I think on the 11th that day, the market was having a huge sell-off. Yeah, the market was dumping so hard going into the afternoon, so everything was just following suit. So I kind of I admit that it wasn't the best idea to bag hold and just, especially after you see it falling and just going below VWAP. I should have probably cut losses. That being said, I did have a thesis, and my thesis was correct. And my thesis was this area where it was basing here was a nice support area. This overall chart was still being respected. It broke out, it pulled back, and it broke out, it pulled back, but it was still holding this area here. So I did hold. I had 9,500 shares. At average price, I'd say in the tens. So I had less than $1,000 tied up in this. So I was okay with holding it. Again, it's not smart. It's not something like I recommend. Like, obviously, if it's not working, you should probably cut it and then just re-enter later. But again, I had I looked at the chart. It was holding, and and then it ended up curling back up, and then we got that breakout. But I sold too early. There's a few OTC breakouts this month that I sold too early, and the thing just went crazy. But that ended up being a solid gain, my highest gain in August. Again, even though it was my highest gain, I have to acknowledge that there was a hope and hold component to that trade. Even though I ended up being right, it was still very speculative. And then I had the NIO trade I went over earlier. That was my second best trade. Then NIO dip buy. On the 11th. But I think that one might have actually just, as good as it was, that actually might have just offset all the losses I took on the 11th as well. Yeah, I got pretty creamed. Like, as you can see here, like lost 9 and 31, 21, lost 100, lost 5, lost 55. I lost so much that it was more of I have to like just save myself from being red on the day. So I gotta work in on scaling. Like, I'm realizing like it's better if I just slowly start scaling in with dip buys rather than just full sizing it. And then at least slowly, it's gonna bounce. So when you kind of catch that bottom where it just starts to bounce, you just add full as it comes off the bottom. And also it's good to cut losses early, but at least when I'm scaling, I'm not forced to cut. Like, let's say I start scaling it from here. It bottomed at 1380, but if I start entering at 1430, even 1440, I start scaling it slowly, so I still get a bulk of my position below 14 or around 14. And then even though I have some here, it makes it back up to break even on that piece. But since most of my pieces up here, I still get a big portion of profits to offset whatever commissions or losses I might take from the original starters. But if I just keep, okay, take a few starters, cut, take a few starters, cut, cut, so many paper cuts that could be avoided by just handling it calmly, and just being like, look, it's going to bounce, it's going to rebound. Again, that is a little bit risky too, because you have to think about it like, what about that one side that comes and just keeps getting slammed, slammed, slammed? But how often you gonna really see that stock? Like that's the thing. Like look at how big this drop is. Like it's obvious, especially with a stock that's a multi-day runner and it has so much support and strength. You know the dip buyer is gonna come in. So I feel very comfortable, like kind of taking that risk and like testing and being speculative until I find the bottom to size in. But yeah, I had a few dip buys, a lot of dip buys. Then my next OTC breakout was BRTXQ. This one's beauty again. Again, holy shit. I missed another green day. But with this, um, I had about 10,000. I had about 16,000, 17,000 shares max. So I sized up from the SHMP, and now I'm getting more comfortable. So this, I think, this was in the chat room as well. Could have been Matt as well, because he played a lot of OTC breakouts. But yeah, check out Tim Sykes Millionaire Challenge. Like, I've been a student since May. It's so much amazing content there, and the chat room is amazing as well. But I'll get into that in another video. But yeah, so this was breaking out, clear breakout, nice, beautiful daily. Had a breakout, pullback, breakout again. And the thing I like about my trading now is I'm getting so comfortable with just following the chart develop, letting it willing to hold it for multiple days, and just kind of following it up and letting it play out. That's exactly what I did with this. So that was BRTXQ. Then I had a first red day. So I didn't really have many first red day plays this month, but similar fashion to July, where I had a nice one of my July. One of my best trade was the first red day. One of my better trades of this month was the first red day as well. ZVO. This one was a little tricky though. Yeah, this one was a bit of a bastard to play with because the volume was so sketchy that it broke and it came back up, and then I got impatient because it kept taking so long. Like these are all 5-minute candles. Like look at that, the way it's how choppy it is. Like it just keeps going and trading in this range. And then when I finally started to get the real gains towards the end, I just covered, and then it finally started dumping more. And then the next day it went a little bit down, but I caught that first red day. And that was only like 400 shares as well, because since I was kind of shorting into weakness, cracking this consolidation here, the risk was further away, and I had to be careful shorting into weakness because a lot of dumb trades I made past couple months, like just a lot of the bigger paper cuts I made, was from shorting into weakness, especially with full size. So just shorting a small bit of size, and then because you see what happened here is that I shorted into weakness, but it dropped, then it had a huge bounce. So it's like if I take a smaller size cover, at least I could capitalize on the bounce, get a higher price when I reshort or just add back to whatever I kept from the original short. So going forward, September now. September, like it's the first week. We're in the first week of September, and I'm still making some mistakes. Like I still am bag holding some OTCs, but luckily the OTCs I'm bag holding, it's like I'm total like $1,000 into like 2 or 3 stocks. The shorts, holding on to shorts, it's small size. So I'm not too worried. I want to really go big size OTCs now. Like I'm really getting comfortable with the sub zero penny stocks, like the single penny stocks, like 1 cent, 2 cent, like BRTXQ. And I was only taking like 20,000. Like now September, I'm taking like 30,000 share positions, which sucks because I'm getting bitten in the ass by commissions. Um, like interactive brokers, holy smokes! When you have like this volume with OTCs, like wow, the commissions could be a bitch. But once I start sizing in, like taking 100,000, 200,000 shares on a penny size, on a penny price OTC, and really start getting the gains, and the commissions won't really phase me. Um, Looking at the past couple months, so July to August, because July is kind of where that shift started happening. June was the last month where I was just had multiple days where I'm losing like four figures and just doing stupid shit like so much. So July is like kind of like that turning point. Since July, I'm up 1,600 gross, 3,000 in 2 months, 3,300. That US that in Canadian dollars, that's 4,000 Canadian in 2 months. And then after commissions, 2,000, just over 2,000. I'm still working part time, so like it's crazy because I'm not even thinking about the losses I took early in the year, like all those huge losses. Like those aren't even on my conscience. I'm just learning, playing the patterns, and just I've really been just going in on just chart developments, OTC like breakout developments, trying to follow the chart. Okay, is this way too extended? Is this a first red day? Is there a pullback? Okay, like let's not just chase the breakout. Let's go for the nice healthy dip. I've really been owning in on the dip buys. Like let's go, let's look at the dip buys. And for dip buy, like those include morning panics. I categorize a lot of like even washout longs that randomly happen, morning panics. Like those are all dips for me. Huge like dips in the morning. Like there's a dip pattern I've been noticing from around 10:30 starts to reverse. I think it's a 10:30 rule that Tim Lento talks about. But yeah, there's a pattern where it bottoms out so nicely, and you scale in there, and then you catch the bottom, and you just ride it all the way back up. But for my dip buys from July to August, 400 but 470. So that's like 25% of my total for those 2 months. I only made 108 from dip buys in August. I think a lot of the, let's see, high of day breakout. Wow, I made over 600 from high of day breakouts. So yeah, I'm really liking the OTCs. The biggest problem though with me is that once I find something that works, I'll kind of forget everything else. So once I start looking at the OTC breaks and like the really low price plays, I kind of slipped back from my dip buys because I was losing confidence on my dip buys from having all those like big losses on the dips. Because if you look for August from my worst trades, they were dip buys because just from being too early and then having to make the money back. So so that kind of scared me and took me away from dip buys, turned me off a bit, and kind of made me lose my confidence. But I kind of realize now, like if I could find the bottom, really scale in, I could minimize the damage. Oh, and another loss I didn't cover. One of my biggest losses from August was again a dumb short, and it was kind of an emotional short where I was kind of getting cut up on AVGR. It's AVGR or OTC. I don't even. No, AVGR is listed. Like I missed the big picture play for this one. What had happened was I got cut up on it earlier because I was trying to go. I think I was buying here trying to go for a breakout, but then my position size was too big, so instead of waiting for it to hold VWAP, I was using like these little mini supports are never that good to risk off with big size, because then if it breaks, you're forced to stop out, and then you lose sight of the big picture when it does bounce. So what happened was once it started pulling back from high day, I had to like kind of cut the breakout, and then I ended up shorting, which was bad because I shorted like full size as it was going into weakness. Then what happened is I was playing my P&L trying to make back what I lost, so I ignored the bounce I should have covered when I started bouncing. And then what happens is in the after hours it just started going crazy, and I had to cut it after it went and broke the high of day. Then it ends up having a morning panic the next day. So a lot of these, like, that's the thing. Like, when you take dumb size too quick and you're just not playing, you're playing the P&L, you're not really following the chart. Even when it does work out in the shorts, because you just were so aggressive and just, that's the thing with shorts. You weren't careful enough, then you don't get the opportunity to just hold and wait unless you're really small size. But then as I as I found out with Workhorse, like, I had 75 shares and that turned into like over $700 loss. Like, but yeah, that's pretty much covers August. This is a huge video, almost an hour. Like, I'm probably gonna divide it in sections so you can look through it. But yeah, I'm excited for September. Things are a little slower, but at the same time, there's still opportunities. I'm trying to stay glued to the computer every day. Even my like on Wednesdays, I'll go for lunch with like my parents and shit. I cut that out too. I'm just focused on the market. Like, I'm ready to increase my size, but not go just fucking gunslinging, like going crazy, just trying to make every trade like a huge winner. But I'm getting a better feel for things. I'm getting more confidence. OTC breakouts. I'm just getting more. I've just been soaking up so much information that I could understand what's happening when I look at a stock chart now, versus where I was just a few months ago. And I'm satisfied. Obviously, I wish I was like, making big bucks, six figures and shit. But this is something that I truly believe will benefit me in the long term, and I'm here for the long haul, man. So if you watch this whole thing, like, I fuck with you. Let me know how your trading is going. And so again, just to summarize this, with the losses that accumulated from my trades in earlier months, this would still end up being my second best month. But if you just take into account the trades I executed in August, this is my best month. And going forward, trying to minimize the stupid mistakes, trying not to have the big loss days. So far in September, we'll just quickly see how September. Well, actually, no, we'll do that in the next video. But yeah, so trying to keep those loss days to a minimum so they don't eat away my profits, and trying to bring those profit days up too. I'm having a lot of nice, days over 100, 150. But at the same time, also making sure that those profit days are doing the right thing and not doing like stupid shit. Like, even on my profitable days, to not be doing, making sure I'm profiting the right way. Like, for example, like here I made 190, but one of my 190 $64 of that came out from a BLNK buying off support. The thing is though, I was buying off support here. I thought this was the bottom, but it went all the way down from 780 to 660, and I had 150 shares, which was so stupid because it went $200 against me. I only walked away with 64 after commissions. So obviously, if I had just cut it, the real bottom, this would have, imagine buying 150 shares at this and riding it up. That's over $100. I would have made more than double. But based on the chart, I think the reason I was holding was like, I was looking like, yo, holy shit, like, look at how much it dropped. Like, the thing has to balance. But again, the horrible news came out from the short seller report. And I guess, like, making these mistakes I kind of learned too, because the short seller report had come out, on the 19th, the day before the report had come out. and then it just kept free falling. But BLNK Blink had yet to respond, and then they finally responded, and then the thing just started climbing right back up. So the bounce was due, but this could have still went a lot worse. Like imagine, I guess I had confidence in this because they had the support area here, and just I remember playing it. I remember being on the short side and remembering how that 10 support, how it just kept holding, how strong this was. So I'm like, there's so many. I knew just there's so many buyers that this would be due for a bounce. Still speculative though. Still not smart given the risk and reward. Still objectively a poor trade. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hit you back with the September review. Hopefully there's better things to talk about. Be back soon.
I ain't go outside today, I ain't go outside for days. I've been smoking purple haze, I've been hurting real weight. On my shoulders can't take, no more can't fake. Smile.